Hey everyone! In today's video, I'll show you how to take an old rusty flange nut from an angle grinder and turn it into a really cool and useful DIY project. First, I'll remove the old flange nut from the angle grinder and replace it with a brand new one. So the tool is ready to use again. I'll remove the old flange nut by locking the spindle and using the proper tool. Then I'll install the new nut and tighten it just enough to securely hold the grinding disc in place. As for the old flange nut, instead of throwing it away, we're going to clean it up, restore it, and turn it. So let's jump right in, and don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed this video. This time, we'll repurpose the old flange nut and turn it into a small DIY spot welder. It may sound complicated, but don't worry. It's actually very simple. First, we'll prepare a wooden stick to use as a handle. This will make the tool easier and safer to hold while we work on the welding setup. Next, place the grinder nut on top of the wooden piece and use a marker to mark the spots where we'll need to make the holes. Now, drill the mark holes carefully, then attach the flange nut securely onto the wooden handle. Next, prepare a tire valve, which we'll use as part of the welding setup. To pass through the hole in the flange nut, I need to unscrew and remove the nut from a valve. This step makes it easier to insert the valve to the center hole, ensuring a snug and secure fit once the nut is tightened back on later. Insert the tire valve for the hole in the center, making sure it fits snugly in place. Screw on the valve nut to secure it tightly in place, and make sure it's firm and doesn't wobble. Next, drive the screws into the holes we drilled in the wooden handle to firmly secure the flange nut and keep the handle in place. Tighten them just enough to hold everything steady, but not too tight to avoid cracking the wood. Now, take the electrical wire and thread it through the tire valve, making sure it passes all the way through smoothly. You can adjust the temperature yourself by changing the wiring or adding a resistor. It's super flexible for small welding tasks. Next, fix the wire along the groove of the handle using super glue so it stays neatly in place and doesn't move around during use. Hold it for a few seconds until the glue dries, then continue securing the wire along the lower part of the handle. I've got quite a few old batteries lying around, perfect for experimenting with this mini welding setup. Instead of throwing away, I'm going to repurpose the inner core of the battery and turn it into a soldering tip, a clever way to give new life to old materials. I'll carefully extract the inner core from one of these old batteries. This core is usually made from conductive metal, and its size makes it perfect for precise soldering tasks. When doing this, it's important to be cautious. Avoid touching any leaky material and always work in a well-ventilated area. Once the casing is removed, I'll trim and shape the core to fit our terminal to valve. It's a great way to recycle and repurpose parts that would otherwise go to waste. Next, I'll grind the battery core to shape it into a fine soldering tip. This will help it heat up evenly and work more precisely. Now that it's been ground to the right shape, the core fits snugly into the valve. And just like that, we've turned it into a working soldering tip. To complete the wiring, I'll attach an alligator clip to the other end. It makes the connection quick, secure, and easy to detach when needed. The alligator clips act as flexible terminals. They grip tightly onto wires, battery terminals, or metal parts, making it easy to test and adjust connections during prototyping. Plus, they save time by eliminating the need for permanent joints. I'll add another wire to connect from the negative terminal. This will complete the circuit and allow current to flow properly through the soldering tip. For this wire, I'll attach alligator clips to both ends. That way, it's easy to connect and disconnect from both the power source and the device. For the power source, I'll be using a standard motorcycle battery. It's a 12V lead-acid battery, powerful enough to heat up the soldering tip and stable for small electronics work. This type of battery is easy to find, rechargeable, and delivers consistent current, which makes it perfect for our DIY soldering project. Now it's time to put our DIY soldering tool to the test. I'll begin by trying to solder onto this razor blade, which is thin and metallic, making it a good challenge for the tool. As I bring the soldering tip to the joint, the solder begins to melt and flow smoothly onto the razor blade and the stripped wire. After soldering the two razor blades together, the joint feels surprisingly strong. Even when applying pressure or flexing slightly, the blades stay firmly connected without any signs of separation. The solder has bonded well to the thin metal surfaces, creating a solid bridge between them. For the test, I'll solder some tin onto the wire. As soon as the electrodes touch the wire, the tin begins to heat up and slowly starts melting. You can see it turning shiny and soft, getting ready to flow into the wire strands, creating a solid and shiny joint. This makes the connection strong and reliable. After finishing, the solder joint looks smooth and shiny, fully covering the wire strands. It's firm to the touch and holds the wires tightly together, ensuring both good conductivity and durability. Now, let's move on to another way to repurpose this flange nut. Instead of turning it into a welding tool, we'll transform it into something completely different and equally useful. If you have any metal pieces like this at home, you can also repurpose them for an electrolysis setup. For example, here I've got an old soldering iron tip that's been used for a long time. As you can see, the outside is covered with a thick, dirty layer of burnt residue and oxidation. Normally, people would just throw it away, but instead we're going to try cleaning and restoring it using electrolysis. Take 2 wires and strip off the outer insulation, leaving the copper ends exposed, so they can be easily connected with a soldering iron tip and the flange nut. Connect the blue wire to the soldering iron tip and the red wire to the flange nut. In the electrolysis process, the positive wire anode is connected to the flange nut, while the negative wire cathode is connected to the soldering iron tip. When current flows through the solution, the dirt and oxidation on the soldering tip will break down and gradually come off, leaving the metal surface cleaner. First, prepare a plastic container that's big enough to hold both the flange nut and the soldering iron tip. Then, pour in some clean water until the container is half. Add a few spoonfuls of salt into the water. Stir it well until the salt is completely dissolved. This will increase the conductivity of the solution, making the electrolysis process work more effectively. Now, place both the soldering iron tip and the flange nut into the saltwater solution. Make sure they are fully submerged but not touching each other, so the electrolysis can happen properly. Once the power is connected, you'll immediately notice small bubbles forming around the metals. This is the electrolysis process at work, breaking down the rust and burnt residue, leaving the surface cleaner over time. During the electrolysis process, you'll see streams of tiny bubbles rising from both the flange nut and the soldering iron tip. Around the soldering tip, the dirty burnt layer will slowly soften, flake off, and even float up to the surface of the water. The solution may also start to turn cloudy or slightly brown as the dirt and oxidation are released. Over time, you'll notice the metal becoming cleaner and shinier right before your eyes. After letting it run for a while, take the soldering iron tip out of solution. You'll notice that most of the burnt residue has come off. And the surface looks much cleaner and smoother than before. With just a bit of wiping, the tip is almost restored to its original shiny metal finish. If we compare it to how it looked before, you can clearly see the difference. The tip used to be covered with a thick, dark layer of burnt residue, but now most of that has been removed. Now, attach the clean soldering tip back onto the soldering iron and test it out. As soon as the clean soldering tip touches the solder, it heats up quickly and the solder begins to melt smoothly. Instead of sticking in clumps like before, the tin now flows evenly across the tip, making it much easier to work with. So, that's how we can repurpose an old flange nut and even restore a dirty soldering tip using electrolysis. With just simple tools and materials, we've turned something that looked useless into something practical again. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more DIY ideas. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next project.